Good day, everybody, and welcome to the Bath Chronicles, currently sponsored by the Couch Chronicles. As I was going to use the bathroom in where I am at, but there's a hiss from the AC, so I'm not doing that. I'm not in the bath, but I'm hoping that any moment now we're going to be joined by Johnetta, who is a spoken word artist and an actress, or do you call them actors these days? I'm not sure. However, she is great. I think she's joining us from, I'm not sure where. Not possibly New York, but it might be elsewhere. So hopefully she'll join in a second. In the meantime, let's chew the fat, some of the funny things in the world. And speaking of chewing the fat, what about the fat rat? Fat rat stuck in manhole, rescued by firefighters in Germany. Overweight rodent found itself in trouble after it tried to squeeze through a small gap in a sewer cover. I mean, this is amazing. The most amazing thing about this story, I read in the article, is that it took 6 hours to free the rat, and it took 6 firefighters to free this creature. And then the RSPCA came. It's really funny. We like to help things when they're in peril, but if it's just a regular rat, we'd probably shoot it. Anyway, it's gone viral, hasn't it? The rat looks like it's singing opera. Poor thing. Anyway, on a lighter note, apparently the rat was so fat because it's been so warm, it's still in winter mode, but it won't stop eating because it's used to eating in a cyclical manner. So there are all these fat rats now because of global warming. So it's a bit like the world, isn't it? This is really funny. We've got Larry David, some guy who looks like Larry David, and Bernie Sanders who wears a jumper, all about it. It's good to be postmodern. Here's quite a nice view of sunset, believe it or not. Sunset. Really nice pastely sky. Big up Sam Harris, a friend of mine, and realised that your identity is elsewhere. Here's my dad.
By the observatory in Los Angeles, overlooking the city and the hills. All in the background. Beautiful sight to see.
Is that it?
That's it.
It's not that beautiful, is it?
Well, second.
What's your favourite bit of hill?
That one.
Which one?
That one with the ground.
Why do you like it?
It's great.
Do you think we should get rid of things? They're planning on turning this into a massive shopping centre.
Yeah.
What shops do you think should be here?
It's very unlikely.
How do you know? I've already got the planning permission.
Alright. Don't think so now.
Okay, gang, we're nearly ready to... Hello.
Hey,
How are you? Hang on, I've just got to cancel what's playing on my screen.
how do you do that? What is that? How do you get that going? How do you
with
get Instagram?
You sort of waiting for... Hang on. Cancel. Alright, hang on. How do I get rid of it? There's a question mark. Not a question mark, hang on. There's a... far right, there's an icon. You can add an image, but there we go. Now we've got rid of it. Oh, hang on. There we go. Sorry about that. I was actually trying to get rid of it, and it got rid of you by accident.
Shaking my head.
So, nice that we've been talking about doing this for a while, and now we finally get to do it.
I know.
On the wonders that are... It is my fault.
It's my fault.
It's a combination, but it's quite a difficult thing to schedule. But it's interesting we can schedule it in this day and age, because
Yeah.
it's a technology that hasn't existed to our previous generations. I think it's quite an interesting thing to utilise.
Yeah.
So here we are. So whereabouts are you speaking from today?
I'm in the wild and wonderful.
In where?
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Okay, so I obviously know that song "Country Roads."
Mm-hmm.
That's about West Virginia.
About wild and wonderful, yeah.
Is West Virginia the Virginia that's near Washington?
West Virginia is West Virginia. Like, I guess it is near Washington, D.C., but it's not Virginia. There's a big difference between Virginia and West Virginia.
Yeah, because you guys... Because I got confused the other day about the two Pennsylvanias. Because they're similarly large. Because I did the... what's that walk called in Pennsylvania? Those mountains.
I don't know, but you're talking geography, and I'm not big on that. I'm not a good one.
Yeah.
I'm not this.
Okay. Geography isn't your thing. So I'm guessing you grew up in West Virginia?
I mean, for the most part. I was born in D.C.
Okay.
And, you know, my dad was in the military, so we went all around. I ended up in, I would say the most places I lived in was Kentucky, D.C., and West Virginia. But I've been...
Interesting. Okay, so you sort of moved around because of military family, basically. Sort
of like that, and other things.
Nice. Oh, cool. So I'm guessing, because I've written some questions today, because I'm trying to be professional today, because usually I kind of shoot from the hip a bit. So
it's okay. Let's just be chilling. It's
exactly. That's true. Well, I guess my first question is when did reading? When did you become? I guess quite a voracious reader. Was that
a reader?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always liked to read. Ever since I was able to read, I was a reader. So, reading is just, I don't know. But once I got a little bit older, I kind of grew out of it. And then I started writing, and I became more of a writer than a reader. I guess, you know. I don't know. I kind of feel like it's a little bit, like, selfish in a way. Because, like, it's more so like, you know how they say you got 2 ears, so you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. And, you know, I feel like when I'm just writing or when I'm reading what I'm writing, it's a little bit, like, selfish because I'm not listening. But at the same token, it's like, you know, it's some people, it's like you're one or two people who like to read or you like to write. And some people do both, but I don't know. I'm more a writer, I guess.
Well, I guess my response to that would probably be you got what you needed to start writing from reading. So then you kind of, you know, the stabilizers were off your bike, and then it was sort of your turn to express yourself. Possibly, I don't know.
No, pretty much. I mean, I think that's the way it is for everybody. Oh, I left my cookies across the room. I was going to eat cookies or biscuits. I was going to eat some biscuits while I was on this face. I mean, it's live with you, but no biscuits.
Oh, well. I've been eating, because I've been in Los Angeles now for a couple of weeks, and it is quite difficult to be healthy-ish in America, I find. Sort of close to impossible.
It depends, though. It depends, like, if you really want to be healthy or not.
Yeah, you can make it effort.
It was hard for me to be healthy in London.
Yeah. Did you find that?
All I ate was chicken cottage and freaking Vapiano.
Oh, Vapiano's good.
Yeah, Vapiano's really good.
Did you go because you were close to your London Bridge? Did you go to Pizza Pilgrims? Did you go to Pizza Pilgrims? That was quite near the theatre. Well, I think I should quantify that thing. It's quite. I feel like it's cheaper in the UK to eat healthily, in that you could buy vegetables for quite a low amount, Whereas, like, here in Los Angeles, none of the small grocery shops really sell vegetables. You know, it's all 7-Elevens.
Like, what grocery shops are you trying to go to? Where are you at in Los Angeles?
Well, I'm at the moment. I'm staying just sort of mid Santa Monica Boulevard. It's more just a general observation.
So you're in Santa Monica. Look up Trader Joe's.
No, I know Trader Joe's is wonderful. But
have you been there?
I've been there. I guess the point is that it's quite expensive. I mean, not that I'm saying that's an issue, but I feel like with Tesco in London, if you want to eat as healthily, it's more accessible.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I miss London. I want to go back.
Yeah.
I'm going back.
No, well, that'd be great. So I guess then the next question, because we're going to come back to poetry, is how you sort of found your interest in performance, in taking what you've written and presenting it to people.
I've always been, I would say, an outgoing person.
Yeah.
And it's just, I always, when I was younger, I used to watch, like, Disney Channel and stuff. But I never, like, I used to want, everybody looks at TV and is like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. But that's not something that I was like, I'm going to do. When I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor. And I grew up and, like, kind of figured this just, I don't know. I'm not the type of person you could just sit down and expect to, just sit down in the same spot all day and read a book. Like, that's just not, that's really hard for me. Or just work in general. Work is a struggle for me. Like, book work, to sit down and just do book work. It's kind of like, it's because my mind's everywhere, always sparking. This is always going on, that's going on. I want to do that. I want to make money that way. So I never really, was that type of person. And then, because of my disability, the prosthesis or whatever, I wasn't able to play sports and do a lot of the things that other people did. So it was just like, where do I fit in? Like, where do I go? And I never was one of those, I would say, like, bummy types where I could just, just not do anything all day. I wasn't a gamer. I didn't play video games. So it was just like, I was walking, like, I was walking in town in Martinsburg, West Virginia one day, like, yo, what am I going to do this summer? Like, I could go chill with my cousins in D.C., da-da-da-da. But then my dad was like, you want to do something at the Apollo Theater. They have this, workshop for kids for acting. And I said, yeah, just let's see how it is. So that was when I was 14. I started acting at the Apollo Theater. I did a show, a musical called Honk, which is a remake of The Ugly Ducklings. And which is interesting because I was just in that Hans Christian Andersen play or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so basically it was just, that. And ever since then, I didn't stop. I went to high school for it. And then when I was in high school, we did, regional theater competitions, and we did state theater competitions. We used to compete with our theater troupe, and we used to do stuff like that, like create stuff, make props. So it was basically started out like in the community, but it wasn't something that stopped in the community. I kept going through school, and then after high school, I went to a school called AMDA, which is there in LA, and one in New York, American Music and Dramatic Academy. You probably passed it. Yeah. Because it's it's on Vine Street, Vine and Yucca. So, I've seen, some of the places that you've been since you've been in LA, and you've been, really close. So, that's basically, and then when I was in school, I joined multiple workshops. My favorite workshop was it was a spoken word workshop, and that was a workshop where we had to come up with a poem every week, and every week we had to perform the poems. So that was basically a thing that really sparked. And then creative writing. We had to take a lot of English classes and stuff like that. So basically, the thing that sparked my writing was creative writing and the poetry. I mean, I was writing since I was 10, but when I actually got up to perform it, it was more so. It was more so a thing for me. It was like this is a thing for me.
Fascinating. Well, it sounds really fortunate that you sort of found your thing so early on, because many of us in life spend a long time on that path to discovery and often going down roads that lead nowhere. So that's quite fortunate that this has started for you so young. Really.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, it was something that I definitely prayed for a lot. And it was something that I just wanted to find within myself, because it doesn't matter where this area in general, and just being black and growing up with the statistics and growing up with everything that goes on around me and that's going on around me. I had to be the one to say this, even though this is where I am and this is my lifestyle, this is where I cannot stay. So I was very hungry and very, very eager at a young age to find what it was for me. And even if, I'm not saying that it's not, but even if the whole performing thing isn't for me, there is, even if I haven't found my thing yet, that that whole thing lasted for as long as it did to get me where I needed to be at this moment.
That's fascinating. And you've definitely done your 10,000 hours. If that concept is they're talking now. That Malcolm Gladwell book all about doing your time rightly with whatever you're doing, putting in essentially the time and the work to become an expert, and you're certainly on that journey. So I think because I'm a bit worried, with Instagram, how long these things can last. There's so many technical things, so I'll try and get through some of my questions.
That's fine. I think they go on forever.
They can go on forever.
I believe so. I've seen some long ones.
Okay, they can go on forever.
People taking whole road trips and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's good. Thank Instagram, and my phone's in a charger, so we're all good. So I came to see you. I was very fortunate to come to a mutual friend of ours, Lily Bertram-Webb's boyfriend's studio, and I saw you perform some pretty impressive spoken word pieces. I mean, I think I messaged you about them after, saying, it's spoken words were similar to, I thought, Gil Scott-Heron in that style, and I guess spoken word is a funny concept because it means different things to different people, doesn't it? Spoken word.
Yeah, pretty much.
I see it as poetry, but poetry in a more conscious poetry, possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it just is what it is. I think it is. Poetry is poetry, and poetry, is basically, I would say it's a way to express your freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And with me, I like playing. I like wordplay and manipulation. So.
That wordplay manipulation. Were you, when you were growing up? Where did that those concepts come from? Was it
wordplay and manipulation? Yeah. When I was young, when I wrote my first poem, I was in the, I want to say 5th or 6th grade. I had no idea what I was doing. I just was writing stuff down on a piece of paper. and it didn't come from no emotion. It was just like, okay, poetry's supposed to rhyme, so I'm just going to put rhyming words on this paper, and it's just going to be what it's going to be because I did the work and I'm going to take it to school. I did my homework. But I read it to my dad and I read it to my aunt, and they were like, that's really prolific poetry. That's really good poetry. Okay. And I had no idea what the heck they were talking about until, it was probably months later that I revisited the poem after they told me, you got to keep writing, you got to keep trying, you got to keep doing it. I went back and I did, when I went back and I looked at it and I said, oh, I could see, where they had found the poetry in that, or found the sound of the passion in that. I could see that. But, when I first wrote it, it was just me just writing rhyming words on the paper.
Sure.
And just making it make sense.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it basically, I think it was just, something that I was blessed with. And it's a gift.
Yeah.
That came about. And I had no idea that it was on me or with me, or that I knew, I had it. So,
Sure.
When I kept writing and I kept doing what they said, and I realized it was something. And then, I never let it go, it was school, okay, blah, blah, blah. But then, after going to college with it, or even just experiencing, where it brought me from high school, how much people liked it, it's just, it was like, wow, you've practiced, or you've gotten so much better with it. And I don't like to make it sound like, oh, I'm doing it myself, like, oh, I'm such a good poet. Because, you know what I'm saying? Who am I to say that about myself? Who is anybody to, critique themselves or boast themselves in any way? So it's just like when I look at my work, I know I'm not the source of my work. It's basically, it's a big part of my spirituality. When I get the pen and I get the paper and I write, a lot of the words do not come from me. I don't know how they come about, where they come about, or why. I know, I go through a lot. And with what I go through, I just, toss it on the paper with, words that I don't really usually use in my everyday vocabulary, and put it together and go back. And sometimes it comes from spontaneity, when I don't even know what a word means, I just write it down in the sentence, go back and look it up, and it makes sense. It's just I know where my help comes from, and I'm a firm believer in the Bible and in God, and my help coming from the Lord. So it's just I can sit back and look at my work and say, I know where that came from, so that is good. And God saw everything He had made, and He saw it was good, So it's basically that type of thing.
That's fascinating. So writing is very much a form of therapy for you, a form of it's cathartic. It's such an essential part of you, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, basically, and I wouldn't call it, therapy. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know. I was always taught that if you want to do it for a profession, or if you want to do it, if you want to do it for other people, it's not for you to take as your therapy session. But I do believe that when I was, getting to writing this, it was definitely, I didn't want to try to make it a therapy session, but I just wanted to share how I was feeling with everybody. Yeah. And then, it eventually hit me that, I'm not the only person who goes through these things or who has seen these things. You know what I'm saying? And especially, a lot of females and anybody in general, it's just...
Sure. Well, that reminds me of a quote that through the individual we get to the kind of the collective, the universal. So through individuals understanding things, we get an idea of a universal truth, which is, I think, a lot of the basis of art, really. That idea, really. So let's, as we have mentioned London, let's come on to your recent tenure in London, which was a debut.
It was. It was my stage debut in London.
And what a debut to make! What a wonderful play, and an oddity. Everything about it, just because I was so excited to because I obviously discovered you at the Open Studio, and then I saw that you were in the play, and I grew up studying Martin McDonagh. I remember I did the Pillow Man as my A level, like at school before university college. Did set design on the Pillow Man, which is super, out there. So it was a really, yeah. It must have been quite an interesting experience.
Yeah, it was definitely quite the experience. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot, it was quite the experience, you know what I'm saying? And even still to this day, I feel like I don't really realize how big that deal was. That was a big deal. That was major. It was major, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's just me, I guess always, trying to remain neutral, I guess, because I don't want anybody to feel like, I feel like I'm less than them, or you know what I'm saying, or I don't know. I just want whenever I do a job, doesn't matter with who or where,
Sure.
I just always like to remember we're all neutral, we're all on this same level, and we're all on this stage together, working with Robin, getting close with them, getting personal with Jim Robin was, it's like, it's not your average. To me, it just wasn't average. It was definitely something more so heartfelt than anything. It was the connections and everything. It was more so we made a big bond, and it was a big family type of thing. It wasn't like I'm going over here just to work and da-da-da. No, it was like I made new family. I made a family.
Yeah.
And that to me, the relationship that I built was, it was that's the best thing about that job, because
certainly for something like the play and its subject matter and its nuance, because it's such a nuanced piece of art that it can, it could be misconstrued, if people didn't really understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much trust between actors in context, and there has to be. And I certainly said when you came to see it, I felt the trust between the whole cast and the unity, and everything about it was so tight. And that certainly. Yeah, I can imagine it was amazing, the whole bonding experience, and especially with someone like Jim Broadbent. I mean, that must have just been amazing.
Yeah,
and because you two had you two had a wonderful kind of comic rapport, and that's as you said, if you were to be almost like starstruck or anything like that, or not bring your kind of A game to it, it would have been very difficult to really, because that whole thing relies on the speed of each other's delivery and everything, all the nuance. It was really high grade acting, I must say.
Thank you.
Comedy's so difficult. Comedy's the hardest.
I just, I think at that point, at this point anyway, whatever is for me is for me, and it's not and if it was for me, it's because it wasn't difficult to get for me because I just went in and really did it. I think it's a lot about the passion that was real in the story that was being told, because for the longest time I didn't look at that story. I didn't look at the show as a comedy. It wasn't a comedy to me.
No, but it's not a comedy. It's not a comedy. I should quantify that. There was comedic elements between you and Jim Broadbent, but why it was such a balanced play is that comedy was used as a delivery for something more serious, and that's the best way to get an audience in, because they think they're laughing, they think the absurdity, but there's bigger absurdity going on, and that's the real laugh.
Yeah, and it
so
was a lot of funny stuff going on in the show. Because there were times where I'm on stage and I really want to laugh, and that's like, don't break the character.
No, it was...
Like, you know, a lot of the times where he just throw her off, or like, you know, it's funny stuff, but I don't know. It's just at that point, it's just whatever. I think for any actor or anybody doing anything that they're doing, like, if it's for you, it's for you, and it's like, and because it's for you, like, it's probably like a little difficult to, you know, I would say maybe get used to or take the direction that, you know, you're not usually used to taking.
Sure.
But
follow the path from above, I suppose.
Yeah, but, you know, I didn't really, you know, sometimes I don't really pay attention to what kind of acting it is, like whether, or the genre or the theme of it, you know, a lot of times, not the theme, but the genre. Like, a lot of times I don't really pay attention to if it's comedic or if it's, like, dramatic or if it's melodrama, whatever it is. It's just, like, I don't really pay attention to it. Because if I'm doing it, I'm just doing it.
But I guess about that play in particular, I mean, as an actor, I'm sure it was actually a bit of a dream, because you had such scope for character development. And, you know, your character was able to go through a kind of a cycle of all sorts of things, and that's you've got scope to get your teeth into, and that's I can imagine quite a good thing.
Yeah, it's just it was really good. It was really good, especially by being my first, you know, professional job out of school. That was and to, you know,